On today's show, the New York Knicks take a commanding 3-1 series lead against the Philadelphia 76ers behind a historic 47-point, 10-assist performance from Jalen Brunson. How Tom Thibodeau countered and shut down Joel Embiid in the fourth quarter of this pivotal Game 4, and so much more coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Want to make mom smile? Start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brands that she loves the most, delivered the very same day right to her doorstep with DoorDash. Look, I'll be honest, sometimes Mother's Day can sneak up on you. It shows up out of nowhere sometimes, even though it's the same time every year, but you want to make sure your mom feels special on Mother's Day, right? And what better way than to start her day off with a surprise gift sent right to her doorstep via DoorDash. Maybe you can't be there in the morning to greet her or to hand her the gift yourself, but you can make sure that she knows that you're thinking about her by showing her maybe she has a sweet tooth, right? Or maybe she's a bit of a tech enthusiast or a beauty connoisseur, or maybe she's a little bit outdoorsy, right? No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and so much more available via DoorDash. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off of your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's Locked On NBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Joining us now to talk about the New York Knicks taking a commanding 3-1 series lead against the Philadelphia 76ers is none other than the host of Locked On Knicks, Alex Wolfe. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Knicks. Alex, a decisive Game 4 victory for the Knicks, 97-92, taking a commanding 3-1 series lead behind 47 points and 10 assists from Jalen Brunson. This was what felt like an all-time kind of playoff performance from Jalen Brunson, who, by the way, now surpasses Bernard King for the Knicks' single-game playoff scoring record with his performance in this game. It felt like he just was imposing his will on this game. The Knicks finished the game with 97 points. Brunson had 47 of those. That means Brunson had 47 of them things, and then the rest of the Knicks combined for 50. Brunson almost outscored Embiid and Maxey by himself because they combined for 50 points on the other side of things for the 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a crazy scoring performance for him. It was what we've been waiting for, you know what I mean? And like the seeds were sort of planted in the last game. It seemed like Brunson got himself going again, you know, after a rough first two at the Garden, and then just goes bananas in this one. And I think so much of it came down to he finally sort of figured out, and the Knicks finally sort of figured out the way to attack this Sixers defense, which I think was just they finally found the way to force the mismatches that they wanted. Kelly Oubre, to his credit, honestly did a great job defending Brunson the first two games. Like, really took me off guard, to be honest. And I'm sure it took Brunson and everybody else off guard. I think they were looking at that and saying, you know, no matter who they put on him, whether it's one of the two wings in Oubre or Harris, or whether it's Tyrese Maxey, like Brunson should be fine because he's just cooked everybody in the second half of the season and was routinely scoring like 40 points. But Oubre did a really good job, and the Knicks were having a really hard time getting Oubre off of Brunson. And they finally found a way to start forcing those switches. I thought that the matchup with Tobias Harris today was one of the most key ones, where if they were able to get Brunson switched on to Harris, it was like that was a bucket right there, because he couldn't do anything to keep up with Brunson throughout this game. But then, you know, he found just such a rhythm that then it didn't really matter who was guarding him down the stretch of the game, and he was able to just score at will. But yeah, just a phenomenal effort for him, on top of breaking the single game scoring record in the playoffs for the Knicks. Also gets the first ever 40-10 game for the Knicks too. So just a crazy banner day all around, and one that Brunson should feel real proud of, and one that he's hopefully going to take back to New York with him and look to replicate in Game 5.
and even arguably more impressive than Brunson's individual performance, the 47-10, which is obviously spectacular, was, I thought, just the defensive approach, kind of throughout the entirety of this game. Obviously holding, any team below 100 points is an impressive feat, but 92 just for the Sixers. But really, the way the defense dialed up there in the fourth quarter, specifically on Joel Embiid, right? Because Isaiah Hartenstein picked up his fifth foul with a minute or so left in the third quarter, and Tom Thibodeau elects to go with Precious Achiuwa and actually moving OG Anunoby to become the primary on Joel Embiid for the rest of the game. Embiid, from that point late in the third quarter, winds up only scoring 3 points the rest of the way off of free throws, 0 field goals made the rest of the game. And I thought that was such an important adjustment, and for Tibbs to have the trust in OG to take that monumental task of slowing down Joel Embiid, and for OG to actually succeed at it was huge in this game.
Yeah, I think they sort of tested that out in the first half a bit, and I was taking note of that almost immediately. They seemed way more willing to switch OG onto Embiid early in this game, and kind of, they were experimenting with it possession to possession, but Hartenstein did a much better job, I think, in the first half, keeping his hands to himself and just sort of defending with his body, which is basically all you have to do against Joel Embiid, because you're not allowed to put your hand within a foot of him without it being a foul. So, you have to basically defend him with your hands behind your back and hope that just keeping him away from the hoop is enough. So, Hartenstein did a good job of that in the first half, but third quarter, I mean, I love Hartenstein. I think he's done a really good job, but I think he was in his feelings a little too much. You could tell the frustration was there. All of a sudden, he just starts hacking at Embiid or trying to reach in on every play. And it's you just can't do that, because the second your hand gets anywhere near him, he's going to just swipe the ball across. And, even though the NBA's claimed to want to cut down on rip through fouls and, the side swipe fouls, whatever, Joel Embiid gets that every single time. So, you have to just know your personnel and know who you're up against. And so that's why Hartenstein got 5 fouls in one quarter in the third quarter, which is just insane. And it was borderline about to sink the Knicks, I think, before they went with that adjustment in the fourth quarter. And that was everything. I mean, and it makes so much sense when you really think about it. OG is strong enough to contend with a guy like Embiid, but he has quick enough hands, be smart enough with his hands to, just go for the ball if he knows he can get it. But he doesn't, he's unflappable. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA, definitely the best defender on the Knicks. So why not put him on the best player of the other team and then just send doubles, try to fluster Embiid, try to make those passes out of those doubles, less effective. And then to have a guy like Precious, who's so mobile and able to get all the way around the perimeter. I mean, Precious was doing so good in help, just kind of sprinting over to whoever wound up getting the ball and was open, getting a contest on it, or, going down low and providing the rim protection that was needed. It was the perfect scheme. Honestly, if the Knicks roll with that and just replace what Precious was doing with Hartenstein in Game 5, this series is basically over, because the Knicks cracked the code. That was it. The way that they attacked that in the fourth quarter was the best defense that we've seen out of them in the postseason, and the first time where I think the full lineup of what the Sixers can offer was truly fully uncomfortable and just got smoked. And I think if they're able to continue that and Nick Nurse doesn't make an adjustment, this is basically the Knicks series to lose at home, and they should hopefully put it away in 5 games.
You mentioned, obviously Embiid, he's one of the elite foul merchants in the NBA. He had 14 free throw attempts and this one hit 12 of them. But it becomes almost addictive, right? To a point where you can't stop doing it. It almost alters the way you play. There was a moment late in this game, right? Scores 95-91, and Embiid had that wide open mid-range jumper and elected not to take it and instead pump fake. He had nobody in front of him, nobody near him. Could have taken it, and this was with 25 seconds left in the game, 27 seconds left or something. Could have cut it to a 1-possession game. A shot that he hits routinely throughout the season. It ignored that shot and elected to drive in and try to draw contact and draw a foul. And it's one of those moments where you just scratch your head and what's going through his mind when he chooses to make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, all that from a guy who literally beat the Knicks the other day. Well, first with trying to injure them all game, but then secondly by hitting tons of jump shots in Game 3. I mean, it just kind of boggles the mind a bit that he wouldn't trust that part of his game. But I mean, maybe he just didn't trust the lift on his shot at that point. I mean, he was clearly gassed. He had to play the whole second half, which at the end clearly took its toll on him because he's just not built to go for 24 minutes at a clip. So I don't know, but either way, for Knicks fans, I'll take it. You know, he can keep going for that as much as he wants, and the less he's a standstill jump shooter, the better. Sometimes, especially from the mid range, I'm maybe more inclined to give him the three sometimes than let him put it on the floor and try to get inside or whatever, just because of the foul merchant tendencies and all that. But in general, yeah, it was an interesting choice by him. And ultimately one that, I mean, I don't want to say that it cost the Sixers the game, because I think there was a decent chance that the Knicks would have won anyway, once they finally figured things out and started making their free throws, which was the huge bugaboo of this game. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how things go in game 5, I guess.
What needs to go right in game 5 for the Knicks to be able to close this one out? Will they be able to close things out in game 5 back at Madison Square Garden? You're going to have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Knicks. Alex, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Of course, always happy to stop by after a big Knicks win.